Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Futurum Tech Webcast. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, and I'm joined today by my partner in crime, Daniel Newman. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, Shelly. I still always got to get used to the whole we are now a webcast thing. It's awesome because I love being on video. I love that people get to see us. We love to see you, but I just always want to call it a podcast.
It's not a podcast.
I
It's a
know,
webcast.
I know.
So, get it. Change is good. Transformation, that's what we do.
We do, we're good at it. And this particular show is all about a big transformation and trend that's going on in the marketplace that I felt was appropriate to talk about. In fact, I think this is so important that we should maybe talk about it a few times on a few shows.
Absolutely.
Because a big trend, something that you'd literally have to be living under a rock to not have heard about. But over the last few months, there's been some pretty darn big security breaches. And Shelly, I know this is something you pay a lot of attention to.
I do. I'm the security freak. It's funny. I was just thinking about, you have kids in club sports. I have kids in club sports. You probably have parent groups. I'm the one that posts in parent groups, got a notice of a hacking from the, outfit that we buy our equipment from. Here's where you need to be careful, and these parents are looking at me like, you're kind of crazy, lady. And I'm thinking, when you live in this space, you pay attention to those things.
It's funny you say that. I'm the one that is always on Facebook watching people participate in these goofy, your best rock concert or your favorite vehicle or what movie did you watch every year on Christmas.
Right.
And people just share this stuff so liberally. And I think people maybe feel because it's like in their social community that this data isn't it's not achievable,
accessible,
to be able to access. Yeah, there you go. Access it and mine it and keep it and associate it. But just like we're tracked all over the internet for the purposes of advertising and shopping, hackers can do the same thing for the sake of data mining, collection. And trust me, I know this sounds, we're not deep, dark, crazy secret world people, but there are definitely dark websites that have your information and my information just waiting for us to give the right pieces of data so that they can get after us. And people like you that are careful, I'm not saying I'm not, it's good that you are out there.
Well, and I think that even people who are extremely knowledgeable about security and the risks and everything else. And I would say I wouldn't call myself extremely knowledgeable. I'm moderately knowledgeable, right? I'm not a hacker. I'm not a security expert. There's certainly people with way more knowledge than I have or than you have. But really it's that it's that awareness. You know what I'm saying? It's that, whether it's I've got to check for compromised when if you use Google Chrome and it shows you have compromised passwords, fix those, make sure your passwords, you're not using the same password across the web, all that sort of thing. But kind of to move on a little bit to our topic today, we're going to talk about trust. And we're going to talk about how, trust is really it's the new battlefield in the age of digital trust or digital transformation. I'm sorry, I'll get that right. So trust, it kind of drives everything.
Yeah, and really at Futurum Research, we're sort of onto this trend. So over the last few weeks, like I said, you're kind of under a rock if you didn't hear about what's happened with Microsoft Exchange. And by the way, we have a great article up on Futurum, and we'll put the link in the show notes. Check it out. That really talks about what happened. Shelly, you track the SolarWinds hack very closely. Yeah. That sort of, I wouldn't say it started the conversation because this conversation has been going on for some time, but each passing hack and some of these zero-day vulnerabilities that have happened over the past couple of years seem to be drawing a little more attention. There's everything from regulatory impacts now where, we're starting to look at everything from civil and criminal negligence to just what companies can people trust. And so a broad spectrum, but something that can definitely damage a brand and the value of the brand. It can also, of course, create real material damage to national security in the cases of some of these hacks. These are big deals. And so we want to, kind of start a series here, a 3-part. So you and I are co-authoring some research that's going to come into market talking about this bigger trust topic. And we're also going to dive into, in the later parts of this series, into this idea of what's called confidential computing, which is an effort that's being put into market. There's a consortium of companies. Some of the leaders include IBM, Intel, AMD, and there's also other companies doing different things. AWS has secure enclaves, which is the type of technology that allows for data to be both both at rest and in motion, but also in execution to be secured. And we'll get into more of that technical garb later on. But where I thought it made the most sense to start was, kind of just talking about the landscape of trust, the landscape of security, the sort of trend in this space, Shelly, to have people sort of invest only as much as they have to where it's almost like a teeter-totter of, if I can spend less and it will only cost me so much, we'll let you go ahead and breach us, which of course isn't the way anyone's actually thinking, but it's been a lot of the approach that companies have taken. We'll spend as little as we have to be secure enough.
Well, and I also think there's a very real mindset, Daniel, that, companies have insurance. Okay. Companies have insurance, and yeah, a big settlement is, hits the bottom line, but I have insurance. And I think that there is, in some instances, and I don't think consumers think about this, but I think in some instances at the enterprise level and beyond, in the small to mid-sized space, I think people are saying, well, I'm going to buy this insurance, and if something happens, we'll be covered in some way. And they're not thinking about it in terms of, what does this do to our customers? What does it do to the trust that our customers have in our company and our brand? One of the things that we talk about in the report that we're developing is, what does it do to a career? Somebody's got to take the fall for a data breach. And that's, generally speaking, somebody, within IT, the CISO, the CIO. So some very real ramifications there.
Yeah, and by the way, it can be the CEO too. I mean,
Absolutely.
We've seen, depending on the severity, everybody's at risk. And again, that's part of this broader discussion, Shelly, is that we have entered an era where it is no longer just an IT conversation to talk about security. It is its own piece of the world, because it crosses over into every vertical and every part of a business, and not to mention every line of business. But it's also a board level discussion at this point. It's something that needs to be discussed in the boardroom, like a key interest rate might impact your business, or a line of credit. Well, you know what? Security is your line of credit to trust within your customers. And in a world where, you're seeing growing regulatory environments, you're seeing tougher compliance rules outside of just highly regulated industries. You're seeing a shift towards new laws that impact the ability to market efficiently to people, because you need to take their privacy seriously. And of course, Shelly, we're seeing massive impacts with like Apple. Like, look at what's going on with Apple and Facebook. Now, that's not a quote unquote security story, but it is a security story. It's all about making people feel secure that their data is being used for good and valuable customer experiences, and not for nefarious uses, and that your data and you as an individual have some control over it. And just, I'll kind of punt it back with this in mind, but this story is like two trains converging. The idea of taking care of people's data, privacy, and using data for good as much as possible, while still delivering experiences, and this idea of keeping your data and your applications and your environments secure from hacking and hackers that could access information that's private, personal, and, like I said earlier, could be even a risk to our national security.
I think that there are also some key things at work here. We did some research in partnership with SAS in 2020. And one of the things that came out of this, we surveyed 4,000, was it 4,000 from brand and 4,000 from consumer? I mean, it was a pretty big study.
4,000 total,
4,000 total, 2,000.
Yeah.
And what consumers told us as it related to security in particular, and trust, because a lot of this work that we focused on was about customer experience, the future of customer experiences now, was how consumers feel about what brands do to protect their privacy. And the answer was very little. And consumers feel very much out of control. We're worried about this. We don't feel like we have any control over it, and we really don't know what to do about it, because we do still need to engage in experiences, to buy things, to do things, to whatever. So I thought that was really interesting. And the other thing that's, I think, a really real factor here. So consumers yearn for privacy, data privacy, security, trust. They're living in a state where they don't have it. Competitive advantage. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind, I think. But the other thing that is a very real challenge today is that there is a dearth of skilled technical talent. So we can talk about all these great solutions, but if we don't have IT teams, if we don't have the right talent for to help run our companies, run our operations, especially talent that is specifically experienced in security, that's problematic. So I think there's a kind of this magic confluence of all of these factors. We have security at the hardware level, we have security at the software level. The SolarWinds attack was a software level attack. Hardware level attacks happen too. And trust that goes along in that chain of security, the physical security, is also an issue. So it's really this huge equation.
And not to mention, we really would be remiss to talk about security and not just talk about the fact that it is a very human effort too. We are seeing massive investments in observability technologies that are able to manage and monitor massive sprawl of data concurrently using AI, ML, using anomaly detection, threat detection, models that have been built to basically identify potential threat surfaces and the risk that could happen on those surfaces for companies. But people are a huge factor in this. Our own behavior, we started kind of talking about this, like when you were talking about the club sports and your little crazy messages. But one of the recent hacks that has been really commonly used because of the remote work has been us on camera. You and I have professionally built the environments, more or less, that we know what's in our camera shot. But how many times do you get on with people and there's no cause or concern or care as to their backgrounds? You see people, hey, I'm in my office today, and they're snapping an Instagram photo of what they're doing. And right on there is papers. And again, you can't see with the naked eye.
Right.
You only have to watch one episode of 24 to know what you can do with high-tech, equipment that can take that piece of paper on your desk behind you and zoom in on it and identify things. And people are fairly irresponsible at times. The joke about the sticky note on the laptop with your password is not a joke because it's not real. It really happens. And again, 32-bit and 64-bit encrypted passwords can be hard to remember. And that's why, we've used things like PassPack and different password tools to generate automated hashed or encrypted passwords that are difficult to remember. And that stuff's great. But that's also problematic because anybody that's trying to actually live their life at times knows that I just need to know my password. So there's all these different juggles. And these juggles become struggles for people. It's like,
That's clever. That was clever. These juggles become struggles. Did you work on that in advance? Because that was really clever.
I'm pretty sure there's a password for at least one thing that I've reset for you over 100 times. I won't say what it is, but I'm saying even us who are pretty.
Which, by the way, is not my fault.
What?
Which, by the way, is not my fault. That we shouldn't talk about it because this is going to jinx us, right?
We're going to get jinxed. But my point is even the most responsible. But in the end, security is one of those things that how often do most organizations talk about? How much have in the remote work world have they really created that playbook for the remote employee to be more considerate? As we've built everything to be cloud, SaaS, and web enabled, and you start doing more things on your personal devices, not realizing that once you put your email on your personal device through a web app and you leave that app open, all those attachments that are in there, it could be company P&L, it could be information that could leak, that could impact a stock performance or an upcoming earnings event. It could be information about your competitors. It could be, all kinds of competitive intel. And it could be, of course, things, if you're in a super regulated industry, you could be looking at files and information that is much more critical, that would break all kinds of rules, maybe it being FINRA or HIPAA rules that could really get you into some trouble. And people don't always think about that. You leave your phone somewhere on a desk, how it's secured. Yeah, of course, it locks, but it doesn't lock right away. And if you actually accidentally leave it open on the desk and someone gets it before it closes, it only takes a moment sometimes to be able to undo everything. So there's just a ton of risk factors for people. And sorry, I'm rambling on, but it's just, I'm so passionate about that human part. We got to train people to be responsible.
But you know what? So back to volleyball, which is my life. Soccer, I know, is yours. As you know, we were out of town at a volleyball tournament this past weekend, and rental car. And we, would get up every morning and drive to the convention center where the tournament was being held. And on like the second day of the tournament, my husband always has a backpack on, and one of the other parents looks at him this day, and I happened to be standing nearby, and said, "Dude, why are you carrying like that?" And my husband, who works for a Fortune 100 company, said, and by the way, you don't have to work for a Fortune 100 company to have this mindset, but he said, "I learned a lesson once early in my career. Never, ever leave a laptop anywhere. It is always in my possession. I don't leave it in my hotel room. I don't leave it in my rental car. I don't leave it in my car when I pull in the driveway at home. My laptop is always in my possession or somewhat nearby." And it's just that's what he lives by.
And even with logins and passwords and biometrics, it's just you just don't know what someone can do. They can physically pull apart your machine, remove a hard drive, and there's all kinds of different things that, again, people a lot smarter than the average, even technologist or average user. And by the way, tell your husband he's in good company. I take my laptop everywhere. It always comes with me.
Yep.
I always have my bag with me. I could be going away for one game, and people are like, "Why are you bringing your laptop in your bag? And why are you walking around with it?" It's just because I always want. Why do you not leave it in the room? I just don't trust anybody.
I think and for us, we own a family of companies. Part of the reason I have my laptop with me at all time is truly, our job is taking care of our clients. And if there's something that happens, I need to have access, and I don't want to be conducting important business constantly on my phone. So that's one reason I have it. But the other, I would never leave it. I would never leave it in a hotel room. It just doesn't make any sense. But that kind of goes to going back to our conversation here, which is about trust. And what we're talking about is operational trust, okay? And what we try to establish within an organization is we tell our employees, we tell our IT team, here's what we want of you. Daniel, please don't ever leave your laptop unattended. If you're going to travel with your laptop, have it with you at all times. Daniel says, okay, sure. But there's no real way of enforcing that, right? He either does or he doesn't. We don't know that. But there's also, we think that, and by the way, I'm not saying that operational trust is bad. And we've worked with lots of clients in the security space and the training space. And we know that, one of the keys to safer organizations is a culture of security and awareness around security. And that's not one and done training. That's ongoing training. That's, maybe hackathons. It's all different kinds of things. It's testing your employees' resilience to phishing campaigns or to vishing campaigns or all kinds of different things. And that's operational trust. And then you've got, stricter rules. You're not allowed to do this, or you have to change your password every 15 days or whatever. And then we've got compliance and certification. And so, your team earns these certifications, has to have this training, gets this certification, gets this compliance certification. All those things are part of operational trust, and they're good. I think that where we're going, that's not good enough. Where we are, that's not good enough.
So if you heard that little pause there, I've been talking for about 30 seconds now, and this is the human part of building content these days. My beautiful pet started barking, and so
it happens.
The life of at home. But everybody has to feel our long-term sympathy for what we've been doing forever now, because you've all done it. But so I hit mute, and then I started talking about how we do have to do better, and I had all these great ideas. But now what I'm going to say is just going to be mediocre. But no, in serious, we do have to do better. The continuous improvement, the human-company relationship. It's not all on the company and it's not all on the people, but there does have to be that sort of symbiotic work to help people become more cognizant of the risks they create, both for themselves, for the company, for their customers, and for the data that we are all entrusted with. And we are entrusted with a lot of data. I mean, technologies and systems are being built that make it safer. And we're going to talk about that in our future episodes a little bit. I did want to sort of kind of wrap this particular episode. I did mention we're going to put out this multi-part paper. And in this paper, like I said, we're going to start kind of what we talked about today, just big picture, what's going on with security. We didn't talk deeply about the SolarWinds or Microsoft hack, but we will actually in the paper. We'll have some references to those things. But, what I really thought would be interesting to sort of talk about is, the real costs of a data breach and what they really do mean for a company. In our report, we talk a lot about this as we sort of set the stage to move to this deeper conversation around trusted execution environments and confidential computing. But, there's research out there, and what, really impacts a data breach, which, by the way, when you're looking at a total cost, because there's an economic impact to a data breach, and there's some tangible economic impacts. That could be things like fines. That could be, and then there's things like lost revenue directly implicated from the breach. And they say that that's about 40% of the actual impact is lost revenue. So you have impacts to churn. You've got downtime that costs you. And then of course, like this is what I would call sort of a soft cost, is reputation, right? How long has it taken some of these companies over the years? I believe it was Equifax, right? Was the big credit card, the reputation impact, or Target, when it had its first breach of its credit cards. Now, again, I'm a diehard Targeter now, but it took me a while to go back. I was worried, and it was our card was one of the cards that got breached. And then, how much harder, Shelly, does it become to acquire a customer to that point? Like, you lost a customer, or you've temporarily lost a customer. And you and I both know this very well. It's a lot easier to sell more to an existing customer than it is to find a new one. Well, when you lose people, they don't come back easy. And if the breach impacted them personally in some way, or their company personally, it's a long road back.
It is a long road back. And, one thing that I thought was relevant, and I've kind of been immersed in developing this paper that we're writing together. When you think about, so you think about the hit reputationally and consumer trust from Target. Okay, one of the things you mentioned was downtime. And I think sometimes we hear downtime and you go, oh, downtime, yeah, that sucks. But here's an example that I thought was really interesting. So in December of 2019, Norwegian aluminum manufacturer Norsk Hydro, which is a global manufacturing giant, experienced a breach. Malicious code tore through its network, and it forced the company to shift to manual mode. Okay, imagine being a manufacturing facility that is reliant upon technology and automation, powering what happens every hour, every minute of every day, and having to completely transition to manual mode. This, the company has admitted so far that the bill for this could top $75 million. Okay, and that's not protecting customer data. That's not, regaining customer trust. This got into our system and messed us up. That's a lot.
It is. And so, as we sort of bring this together, we hope everybody out there is enjoying this kind of topic. We realize, it's a little bit of there's a little bit of riffing here, but this is so fluid in the landscape. And I hope you kind of make that connection between the most high level at the board, CEO, CISO level, all the way down to every single day activities, whether it's your husband carrying the backpack, right. Whether it's the little hacks that we see inside of our social media channels, the little things we do as sticky pads. That is sort of a spectrum there, because these
Right.
little things we do, it's one person, it's getting into one system, it's rooting in that system, it's spreading, and it's like wildfire. I mean, SolarWinds is a security company that actually had code injected. The code it was injecting into people's systems that's supposed to be securing them was being injected with malicious code in it. The irony cannot be lost on you. I mean, Microsoft is the world's largest security company by revenue, $10 billion a year security revenue company, had a massive breach across its systems. And again, that's not because these companies don't care or don't understand or aren't building things that are extraordinarily robust. It's just it is in its own way a battlefield, and we're fighting it constantly, and every person has a role to play. Now, having said that, I think on our next cast, what we should really start talking about is, hey, what is confidential computing? But I think we should end it on the operational trust versus technical trust. And I think that's going to be another thing that thematically will be understood better as we get into confidential computing. But it's the ability, and I saw a graphic in a vendor briefing once, and it was along the lines of, we won't look at your data if you're hosting with us, if you're working with us. That's operational trust. It's an agreement in principle that, hey, if you host your data and your servers with us, we won't look at your data. Here's the signed contract. The second one is technical trust. It's we can't look at your data. And that's really where we're trying to head to is it's like, yeah, you host your servers here. We can administrate them. We can reboot them. We can manage them. We can handle temperature controls. We can upgrade drives and make changes. But our people do not have the keys, the physical keys. It's like getting my Bitcoin. You cannot have my Bitcoin without this key. You cannot see our data, but you can manage the environment. That's technical trust, unless you have the very specific keys. That is a big migration at the enterprise level. Again, just to kind of reiterate, nothing is going to fix stupid, meaning as people do stupid stuff and make data available, but how that then becomes a enterprise-wide problem starts to get managed by implementing greater levels of technical trust into your system to say, you can't get at us. You can't, because there are keys that no matter how close you get, you can't get all the way there.
And that's where we need to be. I mean, I don't see how there's any argument against that. We may not be able to be here today.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So is having six-pack abs and raising,
But you have those.
Shh. I wear a puffy vest. That's my inner tech geek. But, there's a lot of things in life that's hard. And anything that's worth achieving isn't going to be easy. But in this state, if you go back to all the things we just said, higher sales, higher customer retention, because you can basically reverse all the fallout by adding. Right. It's additive, right? Lower barriers to conversion. And by the way, for all the CISOs out there that you sort of mentioned whose head has to roll, I mean, in the end, like, how do you be the CIO or CISO of Equifax or the CISO or CIO at Target when that breach, and walk into your next company and feel like you're going to have a great opportunity to get hired? I mean, look, you're immediately going to go, I mean, you'll rise. People are forgiving. Our memories are short, but at some point you've made your life a lot harder. You don't want to be the person in charge of security on the day of a breach. You just don't. And you don't want to be, when your head does roll, if it does, you don't want to be looking for a job for a while. Yeah. Because it's going to be hard to find that trust. It's,
I remember when I was first writing about the SolarWinds hack, and one of the things that I kept running across was that every senior CISO person, every senior security person said, this is the occurrence that you spend your whole career going to bed worrying about happening. This is it. It's a tough job. It's getting tougher. That's not going to change. So it really is interesting to look at what's ahead with some of the nascent technology out there and just see the possibilities, because they're really very exciting.
It absolutely is. And we really look forward to talking to all of you about that. So with that, Shelly, I'm going to take the lead here and wrap this up. You get to start. I'll get to finish. Thanks everyone for tuning in here to this Futurum Tech Web, not a podcast. And we do really appreciate you sticking with us. And we hope you hit that subscribe button. We got a lot of shows here. There's shows with the team here, like me and Shelly. There's shows with customers and vendors. There are shows with end users. We've got a whole variety here on the Futurum Tech Webcast, and we love bringing insights to you. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter. Join us on whether it's Spotify, Apple, wherever you watch it, we want to be available for you. So we appreciate you. Stay tuned for more on this topic, at least one more, maybe two more in this series. Check those links out in the show notes because we think you are going to like what we have to say, but we're not going to say any more right now. We'll see you later.